Okay guys, so I've recently been toying around with either using an A5 rings or maybe a half letter and debating between the two. And I saw a lot of questions on this and what the difference and can you use half letter and A5 and all of this stuff, especially in Facebook groups. So I thought I'd jump on here and explain it to you guys. I'll go through and show exactly the differences between the two sizes. And then after I'll go over some of the cover options. And then lastly, maybe cover some of the pros and cons of each at the very end. And you can scroll at the bottom on the timeline bar if you want to jump to whatever section you're interested about. Okay, so first with the sizing. Half letter is slightly narrower and longer than the A5 size. So half letter is 5.5 by 8.5 inches, whereas A5 is 8.27 by 5.83 inches. So if you look visually, what that means and what that looks like is this. So the white is obviously half letter and the blue behind it is A5. So you'll see that the A5 sticks out slightly and it's slightly shorter. So for those of you guys who like more of a square profile, the A5 is slightly more square looking than the half letter. Personally, I like more of like a skinnier, longer page. So my preference is kind of the half letter sheet. So really easily and quickly, that's just the difference between the two of them. So if you're wondering if half letter pages can fit into A5 rings, a lot of the times they do. The only thing that you have to watch out for is because it's slightly longer, like the rings where you press down on the rings, like this will go closer towards those edges, like the opening edges. I'll show you what I mean when I show you the covers. But yeah, and then the other thing is your insert is not going to come out as far, so you'll have more space in your planner cover. So really, hopefully that just quickly answers your questions on the sizing difference and if you can fit half letter into an A5 rings, which is what I see is most common. Now, if you're wondering if you can use A5 pages for discs instead of the half letter, yes, you could as well. I think the punching would get a bit difficult in that you'd have to ensure you know where to punch each time. You have to mark it down on your puncher so that, you know, your disc holes are at the right spot. And then I guess the other thing is, again, making sure that when you have a half letter cover that it fits the A5. And I have seen the plastic covers and the leather covers that extend out a bit further. So it should still cover the A5 paper, but your A5 paper will probably just come closer to the edge. I haven't seen that question as often, so I don't know why somebody would want to do that, but just in case you do, that's my answer on that. Okay, so now let me show you guys some different cover options. Okay, so with cover options, obviously there are just so many different options, so I can't go through all of them, but I'm going to share with you kind of two basics and a couple alternatives that are my favorites and my go-tos, which I think are amazing for beginners or people who have been planning for a long time. And I'll link everything down below in case you are looking for one and want to get one. And if you want some more options, you can always message me on Instagram or in the comments and I'll give you even more options if you want. Okay, so first with the A5 rings. The most basic and the most economical way to start in an A5 rings, or any rings really, is a PVC planner like this. So these are really inexpensive, but they're actually very pretty because you can fill these up with, like, you know, little dashboard or planner cards, and you can see through it obviously because of the PVC cover. And these actually look quite pretty. Just in this kind of cover. This cover will be like, I think it's like $10 and you can get two of them on Amazon. Again, I'll link them down below, but I really love these, especially when I was trying out different sizes. It's a great economical way to try sizes just to see if you like it or not. And it still looks nice, and you can get ones with different type rings. These ones are kind of the standard. It's a bit smaller, but it's very light. It's easy to carry on the go, and I really, really love these. So I always have these on hand in most of my ring sizes. Then, of course, if you want to go something a bit more expensive, I would go Filofax and Moterm are my two go-tos always. So Filofax, a lot of you guys I'm sure have heard. This is the Filofax Finsbury, and it's actually, I think, my first planner I ever got from Filofax. It's just so classic. It's beautiful. I absolutely love this planner. I love the pebbled black leather and the little skinny strap. I don't know, something about it just looks so nice, professional, it's chic, it's cute. I love it. I really like the configuration in this one as well. Filofax has great rings, and I like how here it has like the zipper and then some slots for cards, as well as back here there's this pocket where you can put like a notebook if you wanted to, an A5 size notebook, which is really nice. And yeah, so this is, you know, my favorite from Filofax. They also have one, well, several different styles. This one is definitely my favorite, but they also have an original style, which is kind of like this one piece of leather. It's very smooth. Let me grab my personal size of that one. Okay, so I just brought over my personal size in the Filofax original, but they have this in the A5 as well. I just wanted to kind of show you the difference in the leather and the style of it, just so you guys know. So you can kind of see there, this one's a very smooth leather and this one's very pebbly, so depending on what you like. The Filofax original is really nice in that it lays very flat because it's just one piece of leather, but it's also a lot simpler. The configurations on the side I don't love as much. I just find they're not as functional. But yeah, you can get this in the A5 size as well, but those two are kind of my favorite leathers and styles from Filofax. The Malden is also another one that's really popular that you guys might have seen. I'll insert a picture here. I don't know. For me, I just don't love that style as much. I just think these are a bit more classic, a bit more minimal. So these two are definitely my go-tos. And then the other one that I mentioned is, of course, Moterm. Moterm is really, really affordable, especially for the quality. And you can get their pebbled leather like this, which kind of looks almost exactly like this, or their higher quality leather that they have now, which is called veg tan leather. But it's just your own preference. I personally just like the Moterm pebbled one. Like, I don't need the veg tan one, but if you are, you know, really into leathers, you'll probably prefer the veg tan one. And then one other thing I wanted to show you guys while we're here is what it looks like if you put a half letter and A5 inserts into A5 rings, right? So here you'll see that usually it's your A5 page. It obviously fits perfectly in here. This is the amount of space on the edge. It doesn't go all the way to the metal ring part that I was talking about earlier. And then this is what it would look like if you put in a half letter page. So you see that the pages, like I said, go a bit closer to those edges, which can get it's fine with a couple sheets, but see how like sometimes it can snag. It can get a bit annoying there. And then also you're going to have a bit more of a wider gap here on the side, depending on what type of binder you have. So that's kind of what it looks like. But does it work? Yes, it does. And the reason why you might want to do half letter instead of A5 is it's just so much easier to print and cut these half letter sheets if you're printing and cutting your own papers, because you can get US letter paper and it's literally just in half, and then you get 2 inserts on each page. Whereas if you're using A5, you can only fit 1 A5 sheet on a US letter page. So then you're kind of getting half the inserts, but it depends on what your typical printing paper is. For people who are, I think it's like the UK that uses a lot more A4 size, I might have just made that up. But if your home country, you use A4 size paper, printing paper, it is easier because you just chop the A4 in half and you get A5. If you're in like Canada and the US, you use US letter paper, and half letter is easier because it's just half of a US letter paper, right? So it depends on where you are, and I think that's why people have preferences or questions about it. So just wanted to explain that. Okay, so now for discs. I really fell in love with discs in the past couple of years. And the reason why I love discs so much is they're just so easy to change in and out, super customizable and relatively inexpensive. They can be very inexpensive. For example, you can get like a set like this, and it's like a plastic cover set on Amazon. It doesn't come with the metal discs I put these on, but they come with little black discs that are plastic that are about this size for, I think it's like $10, and you have a full set. It even came with some papers to write on. So a full set you could get for $12, fully customizable. You can add sheets if you want, and that's it, right? So it can be really inexpensive as well. And I like that, you know, after you get this set like this, you can then change out the discs really easily to different sizes. If you kind of outgrow the little discs that it comes with, you can get discs as big as these 2-inch ones that I have, right? So these are kind of two options that I'm just showing you here. This is a really good deal. So it came with like this cover and these little rings in plastic, not these metal ones, on Amazon. I'll link those below, as well as some metal options. I would go with the metal discs if you are planning to stick with discs long term, because they do make a huge difference in how easily the planners turn, the pages turn, especially as you get into these bigger disc sizes. It makes a world of a difference. I used to have the clear plastic ones, which were very pretty, but the turning was just horrendous, and I stopped using discs back in the day because I was like, this does not turn easily, right? It's just troublesome. And after I switched over to metal, it just made such a huge difference. So really highly recommend checking those out. Okay, and then the other thing just wanted to briefly mention is you'll see that with these two covers, like for example, this one that I got on Amazon, it's a bit wider, right? So this could accommodate the A5 pages if you, for some reason, wanted to use A5 in a half letter disc format. You could use this cover and still get away with A5, whereas this cover goes a lot closer to the edge of the half letter and your A5 pages would stick out. So yeah, I don't know if anybody's asking that question, but if you are, there's the answer to that. Okay, so now I just wanted to kind of share some of my pros and cons of each when you're deciding between A5 or half letter. Okay, so for me, when I'm deciding between these two, it depends on your situation. So one of the biggest pros about discs that just trumps everything is that it can be folded into a notebook form. So especially if you're taking your planner to the office, or you have a small desk or situations like that, and you just need a smaller area, you just can't do that with rings. The other thing is, like, because you can do that and fold it with the half letter, it makes it a bit easier to write, especially on your left-hand side, or I guess if you're right-handed and you're working on the left-hand side of the page, you can kind of move it around. Whereas in the rings, you kind of have the rings on the edge here, and then this huge binder when you're writing on the left-hand side. I find it a bit cumbersome. So that's one of the biggest pros, really the main pro that tipped it for me if I'm choosing between the two. Sorry, I'm not trying to zoom you in and out. I'm just trying this whole vlog setup with my camera, so might be a bit shaky. Let me know how you like this view. But anyway, so that's the biggest pro of this. Now for rings, in comparison to that, for rings, what I do like, or my biggest thing for rings that I like, is the fact that it turns a lot easier. Because the rings mechanism is like, obviously the rings are smaller than the whole of the paper, so it does flip a lot easier. And I find that sometimes if you are pulling pages in and out and in and out and in and out, you can get some like creasing and stuff on your pages where you've punched it for the discs, and it can get a bit messed up if you're always, you know, pulling pages out, putting them in. That might not be for you either. And so you might want to go A5 rings if you're somebody who's always pulling things in and out. So that's the biggest draw of the A5 for me. And then the other thing about rings, I guess, is that the A5 rings are literally the most common size. And so you can find everything for A5 rings. You can find so many covers, so many inserts, so many accessories, just so many things for A5 size. Whereas half letter is more popular now, but it's just not as popular as the A5 rings. But I find that it has grown. There is a lot of different brands now that cover the half letter, from Tool to Levenger. All these brands are now coming out with a lot of accessories. You can get a lot of stuff on AliExpress as well. And so you can get stuff for the half letter, so don't let that deter you, but it's not as common as the A5 rings. So really, those are just the two biggest draws. Each has its own pros and cons that you can work through. I think I did another video about the pros and cons of these that I'll maybe link up here. You can check those out in details. But to summarize, to explain it really quickly, those are the two big draws. So whichever one you care about more, maybe you should just lean with that one. Otherwise, they're very, very similar. So I hope this video was helpful. If you have any other questions, let me know down below. Any questions on other planner sizes and whatnot, let me know. I love answering the questions, love talking about planners. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye!